Andrea Dunbar entered my life quietly and unintentionally at a time of my own coming of age. She is a strand of many in which I learned to see written word as power and experience what happens when the mind enters a relationship with the pen. The drama studio was where all the weird and or creative kids drifted. It was like it had its own gravitational pull. Whether you never quite mastered the social choreography of school life or full-on method acted a whole other persona Monday to Friday for survival reasons only, you could find us there. The drama teachers, who I only understood properly later in life, knew what it was to be on the edges too. As a teenager, I could have sworn on the Bible that not one person on earth genuinely and wholly understood me. But I knew in school the drama teachers, particularly Miss Church, understood just enough to let certain school rules slide. As girls, we were meant to, option A, be outside looping the school in endless circles, arms linked, hair slicked across our foreheads with freeze gel, metal butterfly clips with wings that fluttered, piles of PVC scrunchies around that one hair bun with two pigtails, dressed in short skirts and giggling away like it was compulsory. Or option B, be sat in the canteen eating soggy chips or toast pizza with a full bladder because, well, we were all too self-conscious to get up and walk to the toilet. So we sat waiting for the bell to go and draw us nearer to the last lesson and then finally home. Drama teachers knew we preferred to be inside, dreaming, reading, talking, being ourselves without an audience. That room mattered. It was the one place where the mask could be loosened, the constant mental maths of how to be seen in a way that felt acceptable rather than in a way that might get you called out on your name, your voice, your interests, your insecurities, mattered. That fear sat in my teenage years like an ice cube wedged in my throat. Peer pressure was visceral. I had absolutely no interest in glaring at boys kick a ball around the pitch, and the quizzes in sugar magazines involving kissing, sex and dates, and the conversations that followed, only served to further isolate me, publicly highlighting everything I was behind in. I enjoyed quiet language and communication, girl talk that was not performed for spectatorship or anybody else, female company that did not require posturing. I often felt alone in that preference, but the drama studio made it feel possible. Ironically, outside of lessons, it was a room where nobody demanded you act. And inevitably, there was the battered two-seat sofa shoved into a corner. Worn out, questionable, yet completely essential. Thinking about it, I'm convinced none of us had even one unique teenage experience, because if you were a drama kid, I know you had that fly-tipped, abandoned, found on the skip, Ackley Bridge-style sofa in your drama studio too. I was 16 when I found a battered copy of The Arbor by Andrea Dunbar in that room. A drama studio in name only, in reality, a matte black painted classroom. I think being too controversial for the play section in the library, it was the sort of place where difficult writing ended up because no one knew quite where else to keep it. My lunch finished and half a drunk flat blue Panda Pops in hand, plus Aaliyah's voice speed was dramatically reduced due to the dying batteries in my Walkman. I took my headphones off and opened the book without ceremony. Unlike most plays I'd read at that time, The Arbor did not feel comforting. It felt like being made to look at abuse, addiction, neglect, girls growing up far too quickly with no cushion to land on. It was blunt, unsentimental, and completely uninterested in performing warmth and beauty for the reader. That was the impact, not the aesthetically pleasing grammar on the page that I was used to, but the fact it stayed there and held space without apology. It did not try to persuade into agreement. It told me, the reader, to face a personal truth. At 16, that shifted something. I realized writing did not have to be pretty to be precise. It could be rough and unresolved, but still land with accuracy. This story did not need to be tidied into redemption to be worth telling. Like Andrea, my mother was a northerner, Born in Bradford in the early 1960s, she had a laugh that could take over a room and spill into the hallway. Loud, generous, unmistakably her, and yes, both my sister and I inherited it. If you didn't know my mother, you may have read her as quiet, incredibly reserved, even guarded. And if you did know her, you knew she carried quirkiness, joy, and humour that never chased attention. Funny without trying, alive without performance. I grew up in London, but the North lived with us. It lived in the heart of our ground floor masonette in a leafy, quiet part of West London. The North lived in small tonations and the cadence of speech, grass instead of grass, bath instead of bath, in the way feelings were said plainly, in the refusal to make truth overly polite for visitors. The culture, the foundation, the emotional weather of the North sat inside our London life without needing to announce itself, not as an aesthetic, as reality. So, encountering Andrea Dunbar's writing did not feel like emotional recognition. It was far from a life I knew, but it did feel like permission. Permission to write without smoothing edges, permission to trust lived experiences, permission to let working class women speak in full, messy, contradictory sentences, permission to believe that voice itself can carry authority. Andrea wrote with a kind of directedness that feels almost illegal in a world that prefers women edited, softened, improved. Andrea wrote in a way where council estates were not used as scenery. Teenage girls were not turned into cautionary tales. Women were not placed on the page to teach the reader any kind of lesson. The characters just were bored, reckless, tender, cruel, funny, and so bloody exhausted, but yet very much alive. And that's why Andrea Dunbar is a hero to me. Not because her life was wrapped into a neat, uplifting arc. It wasn't. Not because success protected her. It didn't. But because she put raw pen on page anyway. She wrote what she saw and knew. She told it straight. And she said, it is what it is. And that kind of truth-telling, especially from a working-class female voice, is treated like a cheap, comical threat more often than it is treated like the art that it is. Later in life, that permission widened. I read and watched Rita Sue and Bob too, and what stayed with me wasn't the noise around it, but the absolute continuity of gall and nerve, pure humour sitting comfortably beside dire harm, desire beside consequence, a refusal to clean females up so that the audience could feel comfortable. I felt the same current echoed through the screenwriting for Tina Goes Shopping and Tina Takes a Break by Penny Wilcock. Watching those felt like witnessing inheritance of voice rather than imitation. Not a copy of Andrea, but a continuation of grit and boldness, a stark reminder that this way of telling truth can move forward hand in hand from female voice to female voice. There's so much encouragement in that, the serious kind, the kind that tells me the door stays open, that there is room for women's stories that are not designed to inspire, stories that refuse to behave. Who gets to be called a hero is almost always shaped by class and power, barring the very few. Working class women are often endured rather than celebrated, applauded only when their stories are made safe, digestible, and easy to consume on a larger scale. Andrea did not make it easy. She left the discomfort where it belonged. Andrea's strength was not theatrical, it was exacting. She paid attention to how people spoke when they were not performing respectably. She listened, she remembered, and she wrote it down. In my mind, that attentiveness is a form of care, even when what it captures is really hard to sit with. It's the essence of pure bravery. There is a particular courage in writing raw, in trusting the pen or the QWERTY keyboard, in refusing to dress lived experience in metaphor just to make it more acceptable, palatable, or less painful. For me, Andrea inspires that kind of truth, the kind that says, yes, this did happen, and yes, this is how it felt, and no, I'm not here to make my experience easier for you. She did not write to be saved, she wrote to be precise. Living history for so many of the working class, you could not write life down. Andrea Dunbar did not ask for permission to speak or to express. Neither did the women who raised me, and that is the power of female lineage. So today I'm raising a glass to Andrea Dunbar and wishing all of you a very happy International Women's Month.